let's talk about a constant dividend payout ratio policy. Okay. Now, in this type of policy, a dividend payout ratio decided on by the company is applied to current earnings to calculate the dividend. With this type of dividend policy, dividends fluctuate with earnings in the short term. Constant dividend payout ratio policies are infrequently adopted in practice. Okay. Why? Because if in a given year your earnings are very low, then dividends will be low. In a given year earnings are high, then dividends will be high. What's the problem with giving high dividends in a year where you have unusually high earnings? Yeah, it sets expectation, and if you just are unusually high in one year because you had a great season for some reason and you can't maintain it, you don't want to just give high cash dividends. Okay, example 10 is a simple example that I want you to read for homework, but all you need to know here is that your dividend is some ratio times earnings. Okay, next is the residual dividend policy. So the residual dividend policy is an intuitively appealing dividend policy that is rarely used in practice. So rarely used in practice because it typically results in highly volatile dividend payments. The residual dividend policy is based on paying out as dividend the full amount of any internally generated funds remaining after financing the current period's capital expenditures. Now, even though this is not very common in practice, but realistically I have seen this quite often in textbooks, a fair amount of time spent on textbooks and a fair amount of exam questions on this. Why? Because from a finance instructor, professor viewpoint, it builds several concepts. So from a testability perspective, I think this is good to cover. From a real life perspective, it's unlikely because this will create dividends that are very, very volatile. Now, since it's important from a testability perspective, let's look at the pretty decent example that you have in the curriculum. So we have a company which has a target capital structure of debt 30% and equity 70%. What does this mean? This means that any new major project that they do, they try to fund it with 30% debt and 70% equity, so that probably helps maximize the value of the firm maintaining this capital structure. Now, the way this problem is structured, we have three different scenarios. One is with a 50 million euro capital budget, then 100 million euro, and then 150 million euro. So these are three possible different capital budgets. What does capital budget mean in this context? This means the amount of money that you need to spend on new projects. Okay, in all these scenarios, the earnings are 100 million. So if your earnings are 100 million and the capital spending is 50, what do? Do you take all, so does this entire spending of 50 come from earnings? No, because you want to maintain this capital structure. So of this 50, how much should come from debt, how much from equity? So you go, where's this 0.3 coming from? Yeah, that's from the capital structure, 30% debt. So 30% of 50, so you issue debt worth 15 and you issue and equity worth 35. Where is the equity coming from? Do you issue new shares or do you use your earnings? Yeah, so obviously you always use retained earnings first. Okay, so then how much money is left to give out as dividends? Fawzan? How much money is left to give out as dividends? Yeah, so after paying out the 35, so 100 minus 35, 65 is the residual that is paid out as dividend. What about the second scenario where you have a 100 million capital budget? So you could still pay for all that amount through your earnings, but given our capital structure decision, how much do we pay, how much debt do we issue? 30 million. How much do we pay through equity? 70. So what's left? The 30 is left. So here our payout ratio becomes 30%. Okay, and finally with 150 what happens? Okay, so again, how much do we cover through debt? 0.3 of 150 is 45. What remains is 105. And you can also 0.7 into 150 is 105. So how do you deal with this? Yeah, so you issue more shares worth 5 million. What's the payout ratio? 0, because all 100 of your earnings goes into the project. Okay, so this is your look of between the three that we have studied now, the three policies. One was which was the first one? So this is a quick recap. The first was your stable dividend, then the next was the constant payout ratio, and then the third is this one, the residual dividend policy. Which one creates the highest volatility? Yeah, the third one creates the highest volatility, hence it's not really used much in the real world. Okay, now to test your understanding, let's do this problem. So go for it. First of all, when you see something like this, what is the first decision that you need to make, or what's the first thing? We just talked about three policies. So you need to study this company. Before you figure out what the dividend is, before projecting the dividend of a company, you need to first figure out what's their policy. Okay, now if you read the first 3 lines, that should give you a clue. So now I want guys who had no clue to just, so Samir, I want you to read the first 3 lines only and tell me what you think the policy is. Exactly. So actually this is another, just a technique. Anytime you read, probably the most important information is covered in the first 2-3 sentences that you read, and then the other most important information is in the last 2-3 sentences of a long paragraph. Sometimes when I read long paragraphs, I just read the first 3 lines and the last 3 lines. That covers all you need over here. Okay, so I hope you figured out that if a company is paying $3 a share for the past how many years? 2 years, and then slightly below that for a 4-year period, this looks a lot like stable. And then the subsequent sentences are just reinforcing that. They are saying that this could be a constant payout ratio if the earnings were not changing, right? But they point out that there was considerable variability and so on, and the payout ratios varied. So clearly this is a stable policy. So if it is a stable policy, what's your best guess of the next dividend? Yeah, around 3, in line with what they've been paying. So that's the only answer that people didn't shout out. Okay, so this is not too hard. Okay, but you need to apply yourselves a little bit. Okay. Now section 4.2, dividend versus share repurchase decision. So very simply, what does this mean? If companies have extra cash, broadly speaking, what are 2 ways that cash can go to shareholders? Either companies can increase the cash dividend per share, or companies can repurchase shares. The first high-level point is from a theoretical perspective, all else equal, share repurchase and cash dividend have equal impact on shareholder wealth. Now, as long as you just know this statement, I don't think you'll be tested on it, because in level 1 there are several questions testing this theoretical concept. The assumption is that you just know this now. So you know that from a theoretical perspective, share repurchase or cash dividend create equal amount of wealth. But nevertheless, there is often a decision that needs to be made from a company perspective as to whether the company should give cash dividend or do a share repurchase. And as we'll see in the next slide, share repurchases are becoming more popular. Why? There are potential tax advantages. So what do you think if investors in general have a lower tax rate for capital gains relative to dividends, then obviously they will prefer share repurchases. Okay. Now what is the signal that a company sends out when it is doing a share repurchase? It's generally a positive signal if the signal is that our stock is relatively underpriced. So this is sometimes called a share support price. So if a company is buying shares back at a given price, it's sending a signal that, look, the company knows best what the future holds for that company. So if they are buying at that price, that must be a good price. Okay, so it sends a positive signal. Added managerial flexibility. Why? Because if management has extra cash and it doesn't have positive NPV projects to do with that cash, it buys back shares. If it gave that money out as dividends, then they set expectation that they will pay dividends in the future, which reduces their flexibility. Offsetting dilution from employee stock options. So if employees have exercised their stock options, what happens to the number of shares outstanding? It goes up. So companies can buy back shares and reduce that dilution. And then increasing financial leverage. This means that, let's say, a company wants to increase its financial leverage because it has determined that the optimal capital structure requires a little more leverage. One way of doing that is to buy back shares. So a company might, for example, issue debt, which increases the debt in the capital structure. And what will it do with that money? With that money, it can buy back shares. When it buys back shares, what happens to equity? So equity goes down when you do a treasury stock operation. And there are 3 relatively short examples in the curriculum that I want you to do at home or after this lecture. Just read these. Question 14, I think, has the most testable material, where you are given some information and then asked to do a couple of questions. So it will take you 10 minutes, but definitely read these. Okay, so the question is, if we can go over offsetting dilution. Now, if you recall from your level 1 days, there is something called employee stock options, where employees are given, very simplistically put, call options. Okay, so that they do a good job, so the stock price goes up, and then if the stock price goes up, employees can exercise those options. Now, options are not shares. Okay, so if an employee gets 5 million options, he's not getting shares. But when he exercises those options, so let's say an employee has 5 million options, the CEO has 5 million options. When he exercises those options, what the company does is it has to issue new shares, okay, to the employee. So when new shares are issued, then the number of shares outstanding goes up by 5 million. So what happens then? Then there is dilution, because now for the same amount of earnings, we have more shares outstanding, so EPS would go down and so on. So how do you offset that? You offset that by then buying back shares. You can quickly go back to level 1 reading on income statement, and there was this whole segment on buying back shares and how that impacts EPS and so on. Okay, but you won't be tested on that again. Okay, next, global trends in payout policy. The CFA Institute just wants you to have a general idea of what the trends are. I'll just read this out to you because it's just information. The fraction of companies paying dividends has been in long-term decline in most developed markets. So what we are saying is, in general, cash dividends are down. So since the early 80s in the US and the early 90s in the UK and Europe, the fraction of companies engaging in share repurchase, so share repurchase has been trending up. Why do you think? For all the reasons that we just discussed on the last slide. So gives more flexibility, doesn't send signals that we'll keep paying high dividends and so on. Okay. Lower portion of US companies are paying dividends compared with European companies. So this last bullet, how is this different from the earlier bullets? The energy level in this room is relatively low. We need to, I know it's been a long day at work. No, I'm just making you wake up here. Nothing too, I'm just asking what's the difference between the top 2 bullets and this bottom bullet. Yeah, actually, the bottom, this last point is simply comparing trends in Europe versus US. So just to use terminology that you, two of these are sort of time series comments, and one is a cross-sectional comment. Yeah, the third, this is a cross-sectional comment, and the top two are time series comments. Okay, just to revise your quant. Okay, now the last segment of this reading is dividend safety. What does dividend safety mean, Sana? Yeah, the dividend safety theory from an investor perspective, let's say you like to receive dividends, then what would you worry about? You would worry about, will this company suddenly cut dividends? So dividend safety is just a way of measuring. If the safety is high, what does that mean? That the chances that the company will cut dividends is low. Okay, so now how do you figure out whether the dividend safety is high or low? Okay, now the traditional way of looking at dividend safety is the dividend payout ratio. What's the dividend payout ratio? So you've already seen this, dividends over earnings. Now very intuitively, if this ratio is high, what does that mean? Does the high ratio means high safety or low safety? Low safety. So if a company is paying almost all its earnings as dividends, it has a high ratio, and chances are it will not be able to maintain that. So a high ratio means low safety, and a low ratio means high safety. Now just to make your life interesting, there is also a dividend coverage ratio, which is simply the reciprocal of the payout ratio. Okay, so I'll not make you say the obvious. What's the obvious? Actually, maybe I will make you say the obvious. So dividend coverage ratio, high ratio means what?
It's a good source.
Safe. What's the analogy with interest coverage? What's the interest coverage ratio? Yeah, the interest coverage ratio is your operating income divided by interest payment. So whenever you see coverage ratios, higher is better. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll just quickly read this. A higher dividend payout ratio or a lower dividend coverage ratio tends to indicate, all else equal, a higher risk of a dividend cut. That means lower safety. The logic is that with a relatively high dividend payout ratio, a relatively small percentage decline in earnings could cause the dividend not to be payable out of earnings. And as FYI, large mature companies target payout ratios between 40 and 60%, so that gives them a bit of buffer. Okay, now free cash flow to equity coverage ratio. End of the day, where do dividends come from? They come from free cash flow to equity. So that's where the dividend comes from. So this is a coverage ratio. So without thinking, you can tell that high ratio is good. So what's the coverage? It's the numerator will always be either an earnings number or a free cash flow number of some sort. So in this particular case, it's free cash flow to equity divided by, why do we say dividends and share repurchases? This is the money that is going to shareholders. Okay, so if this ratio is high, generally that means that, so if the ratio is high, that means we are safe. If it's less than 1, that means that the free cash flow is less than the dividends or the cash being paid to shareholders, so that's clearly not sustainable. Okay. Another this is a general point that the curriculum makes. So after stating all this, from a practical standpoint, how do you figure out whether the dividend safety is high or not? What do you think? If you are an analyst, other than what we've seen, what else do you think you'll do realistically and from a totally practical standpoint? You'd see the history. So you'd see, does this company have a record of paying stable dividends? So extremely high dividends. So that's one point you will see. Another you will look for is, do we have a very high dividend yield relative to historical numbers? So effectively a quick time series analysis. If you notice, what's dividend yield? Yeah, so dividend over price. So if this ratio is very high relative to historical numbers, what does that indicate? So then there is a risk that dividend will come down. So these are just a couple of practical items that are added to the quantitative measures shown above. Okay, this is just quickly checking whether, just look at this problem and see if you can do it. So this is fairly straightforward. For homework, all we are doing is just a simple calculation. So if you get this question on the exam, you can do a quick celebration, mark the answer and move on. Okay, example 16, read, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, reasons. Okay, so that is it.